Amara Bennett woke to the quiet hum of air circulating through a place she had never seen. Her eyelids fluttered open slowly, cautiously, as if afraid reality might shift again. A ceiling of glass and steel reflected the soft morning light. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Manhattan skyline, so close she could almost reach out and touch the glass towers. For a long second, she lay still, trying to grasp some thread of memory. Something, anything that would explain why she was in a penthouse worth more than every apartment she had ever lived in, combined. Nothing came. No memory, no dream. Not even a vague sensation of belonging. Just a single, hollow question echoing through her skull. Where am I? She sat up slowly, fingers curling into crisp white sheets, too expensive to belong to her life. Anxiety prickled beneath her skin. The last thing she remembered was working late at the legal aid office, sipping burnt coffee and highlighting case files. She remembered the subway ride home. She remembered unlocking her apartment door. Then, darkness. A curtain drawn abruptly over the rest of her life. The scent of freshly brewed coffee drifted into the bedroom. Her heart lurched. Someone else was here. She swallowed hard, swung her legs off the bed, and stood barefoot, wearing a silk slip she didn't own. Her pulse drummed in her ears as she followed the aroma into the open living space. The penthouse was enormous. Coldly beautiful marble floors, chrome surfaces, abstract art that probably cost more than her law degree. This wasn't a place where she belonged. It was a place where someone like her could drown in silence. She rounded the corner and froze. A man stood in the kitchen, his back to her, tall, broad shoulders outlined in a white dress shirt, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms corded with muscle. His hair was a burnished blonde, cut with precision, his posture controlled, practiced, powerful. He poured coffee into 2 mugs as if this were a perfectly normal morning, as if she were supposed to be here. Her breath caught when he turned. He was devastatingly handsome, almost unreal, with glacier blue eyes that swept over her with unsettling familiarity. His jawline was sharp enough to draw blood, and the faint stubble shadowing it only emphasized the masculine grace beneath. He didn't look startled to see her. He didn't even look curious. He looked relieved. A slow, deliberate smile curved one side of his mouth. "Good morning, Mrs. Kingsley." The words slammed into Amara's chest like a physical blow. Her throat closed. "Mrs. Kingsley." She shook her head instinctively, backing up a half step. "You've got the wrong person," she whispered. Though her voice trembled with doubt, she couldn't hide. But the man only tilted his head slightly, his gaze steady, a gaze that felt like it had mapped every inch of her. "No," he said softly. "I don't." Something inside her quivered panic, confusion, a rising dread she couldn't name. She took him in again carefully this time, the tailored shirt, the polished confidence, the quiet dominance he carried like a second skin. This man wasn't an ordinary stranger. He was someone accustomed to power, respect, obedience, someone used to having the world bend around him. "Who are you?" she forced out. He regarded her for a beat, his expression unreadable, then stepped closer, moving with the controlled precision of a man who never made accidental motions. "Ethan Kingsley," he replied. "Your husband." Amara's heart plummeted. She shook her head, more violently now. No, no. That's impossible. I don't even know you. A flicker of something dark, hurt frustration crossed his eyes before he masked it with a cool, careful smile. You knew me yesterday. His tone was gentle, but she felt the steel beneath it, the kind that could cut if he chose to. She hugged her arms to herself, suddenly aware she was wearing almost nothing. What do you want from me? Ethan's jaw tightened as he set the mug aside. Only the truth. The part you've lost. He walked to the dining table and picked up a file thick. Official. Stamped with a lawyer's insignia. He held it out to her. If you won't take my word for it, perhaps you'll take your own. She hesitated, then forced her legs forward. Her fingers brushed his when she took the folder, and a strange shiver shot through her, foreign, yet familiar, like déjà vu tangled with fear. The moment her eyes landed on the documents, the world tilted. Marriage certificate, Ethan A. Kingsley and Amara L. Bennett. Signed 3 years ago. Her breath hitched. Behind it, another set of papers. Petition for dissolution of marriage, filed by Amara Bennett, Kingsley. Signed last night. No, she whispered, voice cracking. This isn't real. I wouldn't. But the signature was hers. Unmistakable. She had signed her own marriage away just hours before, waking up unable to recall a single piece of it. Ethan watched her carefully, tension etched across his shoulders. You asked for a divorce, he murmured. You gave me these papers, left our home, and then vanished. Vanished, she echoed, dizzy. You didn't answer your phone. Your GPS was off. When I found you unconscious in the elevator lobby downstairs, you were shaking, confused. His eyelids lowered briefly, as if recalling something unbearable. You kept saying you didn't remember me. Not one memory, not even my name. A cold wave swept through her. She took a step back. What happened to me we don't know yet. His voice hardened, but I intend to find out. Something in his tone told her this wasn't just concern, it was possession, fury, protectiveness woven into one. She didn't know whether to trust him or run from him. Every instinct warred inside her chest. I want to leave, she said quietly. Now. Ethan exhaled slowly, the sound soft yet heavy. If that's what you want, you can walk out that door. He pointed toward the private elevator. I won't stop you. Relief bloomed in her chest until he added, but someone out there wanted you gone badly enough to erase your memory only hours after you signed those papers. He took a step closer, voice dropping. What do you think happens to you if you walk out without knowing who targeted you? She stiffened. You're implying someone hurt me. I'm stating it. He corrected. And whoever it was, they didn't expect you to survive. A chill gripped her spine. Why would anyone? Because you're my wife, he said quietly, and being tied to me has never been safe. The confession hung between them, electric and terrifying. Her pulse hammered. He studied her face with a tenderness that surprised her. Amara, you can forget the last 3 years. Forget the vows. Forget every night you fell asleep in my arms. His throat worked, but I won't let you disappear from me again. Her breath stuttered. Why? Ethan's voice lowered to a raw whisper. Because I've already lived through losing you once. Her chest tightened painfully. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it, expression shifting into something sharp. Dangerous. They found something, he muttered. Who? He looked at her with a truth she wasn't ready for. The detective I hired. There was someone with you last night. Someone who didn't want the world to know you came home. Her blood ran cold. What do you mean? Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice as though the walls might be listening. Security caught a figure following you into the building, face hidden. The footage was tampered with 20 minutes later. Amara's heart throbbed painfully against her ribs. Someone erased themselves from the tapes. Ethan said, but they made one mistake. What mistake? They didn't expect you to wake up. A violent shiver rolled through her. Do you know who it was? Ethan's jaw tightened, eyes glinting with a fury that chilled her deeper than the morning air. I have a name, he murmured. But until I confirm it, you stay where I can protect you. She felt herself shrinking back. Protect me. Or keep me. His gaze flickered with something wounded, possessive, and impossibly sad. Does it matter? He whispered. If the danger is the same either way. Her breath trembled. I don't trust you. He nodded once, like he'd expected that. Then trust this: whoever wanted you erased is still out there. His voice dropped into a vow, dark and unshakable. And I will burn Manhattan to the ground before I let them touch you again. She stared at him. This man she didn't know, yet whose voice scraped painfully against her heart, as if some forgotten part of her remembered exactly how he sounded when he made promises. Amara, he said softly, stepping close enough that his warmth brushed her skin. You can forget me if you have to, but I will not let you forget what we were. Not again. Her pulse jumped. Then he whispered the words that shattered the last illusion of safety. Someone wanted you gone the moment you asked for a divorce. And I'm terrified. I know who. Amara didn't realize she was trembling until her hand slipped from the doorknob. The elevator panel glowed softly in the dim light, waiting for her command. Yet her body refused to move. She wanted to leave. Every rational cell in her screamed to, but the fog of fear, confusion, and some strange magnetic pull kept her anchored. The man behind her didn't touch her, didn't approach, didn't block the exit. He simply stood in the threshold of the living room with the kind of controlled stillness that carried more weight than physical restraint. If you want to walk out, Ethan said quietly, I'll open the door for you. His voice was steady, stripped of the earlier edge. A strange gentleness threaded through it, as though he already knew she wouldn't step into that elevator. But before you go, he added, eyes locked on hers, you deserve the truth. The words sank into her skin, unsettling her more than the threat of danger had. Amara forced herself to breathe. What truth, she asked, though the question emerged barely above a whisper. Ethan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked past her with slow, deliberate steps, and for a moment she thought he was leaving. But he stopped at a sleek drawer built into the wall and typed a code she couldn't see. A soft click followed, and he withdrew a small black box. Come here, he said. It wasn't a command, more an invitation wrapped in something raw and vulnerable. Something she didn't understand. She hesitated, but moved toward him. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe it was the smallest echo of the woman. She apparently once was the woman who married this man. Ethan opened the box and placed a stack of photographs and a tablet on the marble counter. "These," he said, "are pieces of us." Amara felt the tremor in her fingertips as she reached for the first photo. A desert stretched endlessly behind them, sand dunes rolling toward the horizon. She stood barefoot in flowing indigo robes, the wind lifting her curls, laughter frozen mid-breath, and Ethan's shirt open at the chest. Sun in his hair held her hand as if he couldn't imagine letting go. They looked wild and free. "Happy. Morocco." Ethan murmured, "Your idea. You dragged me into the Sahara because you said I needed to unclench my billionaire jaw." Despite herself, Amara almost smiled. Almost. But the warmth in the photo contrasted painfully with the cold blankness inside her. She felt nothing. No echo of the wind on her skin. No memory of the laughter she saw in her own eyes. She picked up the next photo. She was wearing a wedding dress in Paris, simple silk, elegant, and radiant against her deep skin. Ethan stood behind her, kissing her shoulder as she looked at her reflection. Her smile in the picture was soft, tender, full of a love she could hardly believe belonged to her. Amara's throat tightened. "I chose that dress," she whispered. She didn't know how she knew, but she felt it a faint, instinctive certainty. Ethan's voice lowered. "You said you wanted something timeless, something that would look just as breathtaking when we were old and wrinkled." She swallowed, eyes stinging. She didn't want to feel anything. But the image cracked something open: fear, longing, disbelief, all tangled together. She set the photo down with shaking fingers and picked up the next. The two of them tangled in an office chair, daylight streaming through glass walls. She was wearing a pencil skirt and laughing, hair messy, while Ethan held her face and kissed her as if he didn't care who saw. "That was your first major case," he said. "You won it. You came here to celebrate." Her pulse skittered. "This is your company, ours," he corrected softly. "You helped build the legal foundation for Kingsley Holdings when you left your firm. We worked side by side. The idea of being part of something that big, that powerful, sent a ripple of awe through her. Why would I leave a job like that?" Ethan's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. "Because you thought I betrayed you." The words lodged in her chest like a shard of ice. Before she could ask more, he pressed the tablet screen. A video loaded instantly. Amara's breath hitched at the sight of herself, tear-streaked, shaking, wrapped in Ethan's arms in this very penthouse. Her voice broken, desperate, whispered through the speakers, "Ethan, don't ever leave me." She felt the blood drain from her face. Panic, vulnerability, fear. A love too intense, too consuming. She didn't recognize the woman in the video, but she felt her pain as if it were happening now. Ethan paused the video, and the silence pulled taut. "We fought," he said quietly. "A misunderstanding. You accused me of something I didn't do. You tried to walk away from the marriage. That night, you came back, and you collapsed in my arms like that." Her heartbeat slammed in her ears. "I don't remember any of this." "I know." His expression softened, and that softness hurt more than any coldness could have. "But I do." She looked down at the photos again. This life, this story, this love she apparently lived, and felt the terrifying emptiness inside her widen. "Why did I forget?" she whispered. Ethan exhaled slowly, the muscle in his jaw ticking. We don't know yet. Your scan showed no trauma, no concussion. But memory loss like this doesn't happen without a trigger. He hesitated a second too long, or a reason. She caught the shift immediately. You're hiding something. His eyes didn't waver. I'm waiting for the investigation to confirm it before I tell you. Tell me now. Her voice cracked like a whip, surprising them both. Ethan flinched, only slightly, but enough to reveal the truth. He wasn't unshakable. Not when it came to her. Amara, he said, her name falling from his lips with quiet reverence. The last time you asked for the truth, it tore us apart. I will not make the same mistake until I'm certain. She hated that it sounded protective instead of manipulative, hated even more that part of her believed him. The room seemed to close around her, filled with ghosts of a life she had lived but couldn't feel. Desperate to understand herself, she pressed her hand to her chest. I look so happy in these pictures, she murmured. Why don't I feel anything? Ethan's expression twisted anguish, flickering like a crack in marble. Feelings don't vanish, he said softly. They hide when the mind is hurt, but I've seen you wake up in my arms every day for 3 years. I know you. I know the warmth you carry beneath all that fire. I know the way you love. The way he said it, like a memory he held sacred, like a prayer he had whispered into her skin, sent a shiver through her. Please don't say things like that, she whispered. I'm not her. Not yet, he murmured. But you're still you. She stepped back, overwhelmed. I need time. Take all you need, he said. I won't push. And true to his word, he didn't move toward her, but his eyes followed her like a shadow, protective, tormented, and unbearably tender. There's something else you should know, he added. Her stomach tightened. What now? Ethan hesitated, then reached into the box again, this time withdrawing a small velvet pouch. When he opened it, light spilled across her vision. A ring. Her ring. A gold band etched with tiny constellations. Scorpius. The one she was born under, wrapped delicately around a diamond the color of warm champagne. The metal was scuffed, slightly worn, as if once cherished. You designed this, Ethan said. You said it was a map. That if you ever got lost, you wanted a way back to us. The ache in her chest deepened into something sharp, something almost like grief. Ethan, she whispered, voice shaking, how did we end up here? His eyes met hers with quiet devastation, because somewhere between loving me and almost leaving me, someone made sure you forgot which you wanted more. The breath left her lungs. You think someone did this on purpose? Yes, he said without hesitation, and they're closer than you think. A cold shudder ran through her, before she could ask anything else. His phone buzzed again. He looked at the screen, then at her. Something hardened in his gaze. The investigation found something new, he said, and this time, it involves you. Her pulse stumbled. Me a message, he said slowly, sent from your phone the night you disappeared. Her breath hitched. What did it say? He held her gaze with lethal softness. It said, I know who tried to ruin us. Meet me alone. Amara felt her knees weaken as her world tilted violently once more. Ethan stepped forward at last, catching her arm with surprising gentleness. Amara, he murmured, Whoever you were meeting that night, they didn't want you remembering any of it. And though she didn't remember loving this man, she remembered fear all too well. If you'd like, I can continue with Fan Tu, the woman who wants his throne, in the same cinematic tone. The ride to Kingsley Holdings felt like being ferried toward a past life she couldn't remember and a future she wasn't sure she wanted. Manhattan glittered beyond the tinted windows, but Amara barely noticed the city's pulse. Her mind was a storm of splintered questions, each one cutting deeper than the last. Ethan sat beside her in the back seat, composed and unreadable, absorbed in silent thought. Since the footage discovery, he had become sharper, more guarded, as though every passing hour tightened an invisible noose around them both. When the car stopped in front of a tower of obsidian glass, Amara's breath caught. The Kingsley headquarters was impossibly tall, sleek, intimidating, a monument to wealth and dominance. "Why am I here?" she asked quietly. Ethan turned his head, studying her with a look she couldn't decipher, part hesitation, part determination. "You asked for answers," he said. "My attorney has the updates you need. She'll walk you through what we've found." Something in his tone felt careful, too careful. But she didn't have the luxury of doubting everything. She followed him inside. The moment they entered the lobby, something shifted in the air, subtle but unmistakable. Dozens of eyes flicked toward her with curiosity, then judgment, then something colder. Whispers trailed behind them like a smoke trail. A receptionist straightened abruptly, eyes wide. "Mr. Kingsley, Ms. Quinn is already waiting." Her gaze slid to Amara, faltering for a beat before she forced a polite smile. "And welcome, Ms. Bennett." Amara stiffened. Bennett? Her maiden name. Civil, detached. Not Kingsley. She glanced at Ethan. He didn't react, but she saw the faint tension crease the corner of his jaw. The elevator ride was silent, except for the faint hum of ascent. When the doors opened onto a floor of smoked glass offices and minimalist decor, Amara felt every hair on her arms lift. Something was wrong here. She felt it like a pressure drop before a storm. Ethan gestured for her to enter a conference room. "She'll join you in a moment," he murmured. "I'm stepping into a call, but I won't be far." His eyes met hers, searching, almost protective. "If anything feels off, tell me immediately." She nodded, though her pulse had already quickened. The door shut softly behind him. Amara inhaled deeply, grounding herself in logic, her sharpest weapon. She was a lawyer. She had navigated hostile courtrooms. She could handle one meeting, or she thought she could, until the door opened again. Harper Quinn entered like she owned the room, tall, porcelain pale, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit tailored to perfection. She exuded a predatory elegance that prickled Amara's skin. Her blonde hair was twisted into a sleek knot, accentuating cheekbones sharp enough to slice through glass. But it was her eyes, cool, crystalline, unblinking, that told the real story. Hatred, thinly veiled under professional courtesy. Harper closed the door with a flick of her wrist and didn't bother hiding her sneer. "So," she drawled, "we're doing this again." Amara raised her chin. "Doing what again?" Harper laughed softly. The kind of laugh that said she was already bored with tearing Amara apart. The act. The fragile, confused damsel routine. She stepped close. Too close. Her voice dripping venom. Pathetic. Even for you? Amara blinked, stunned by the hostility. I don't know you, she said carefully, but it seems you have a very strong opinion of me. Harper's smile sharpened. Oh, I know you, she whispered, better than you deserve. She studied Amara from head to toe with a disdain that burned. You're not even trying today. No makeup, no jewelry, not a trace of the woman who clawed her way into Ethan's life. Amara's pulse kicked. I didn't claw my way anywhere. Harper arched a brow. Please. Everyone in this building knows you seduced him when he was vulnerable. You played the grieving wife card, and he fell for it. Poor Ethan. She leaned closer. He's always been too kind for his own good. Something inside Amara snapped. Kind you treat him like he owes you something. Harper didn't deny it. Instead, she lifted her chin regal. Chilling. He does owe me. Years of loyalty. Friendship. Trust. Things you stole. I didn't steal anything. Harper let out a breathy laugh. You really don't remember. Amara stiffened. That laugh, something about it felt rehearsed. Practiced for an audience that didn't involve her. I know what people say. Harper continued, circling her slowly. That you're the wife. That you married him in secret. That he's protecting you. That you're back to fix things. Ironic. Isn't it? She tilted her head, eyes gleaming. You're not the wife in their minds. You're the intruder. The words hit Amara like a blow. What are you talking about? Harper shrugged, feigning innocence. Just office gossip, but I can't really blame them. They've never seen you here. Never seen Ethan so distant. She smirked. So of course, they assumed I was the one he was going to marry. Amara's breath stilled. They think you're his fiancé. Not think. Harper corrected. Knew. She traced a finger along the conference table. It's what everyone expected. He and I are legacy. Old families. Old money. Perfect match. She leaned forward, voice icy sweet. And then you slithered in. Amara felt something deep within her recoil, not from the insult, but from the instinct twisting under it. Her intuition whispered that Harper wasn't just ambitious. She was dangerous, calculating, capable of anything. What exactly did I slither into? Amara asked, voice steady despite her racing pulse. Harper's expression darkened, eyes flashing with something vicious. A seat you don't deserve. A throne you don't understand. Ethan is supposed to lead empires, not babysit strays. Amara felt her nails dig into her palms. You're not just jealous, she said quietly. You're territorial. Harper's lips curved. How observant. The door suddenly opened. Ethan stepped inside, stopping short when he saw Harper, inches from Amara. His gaze sharpened instantly. Harper, he said, voice low, controlled. We talked about this. Harper straightened, mask of professionalism snapping into place so quickly, Amara felt the shift like a slap. Of course, Ethan, she said sweetly. Just catching up with your guest. His eyes narrowed. She's not a guest. Harper's smile froze. She's here for legal consultation, Ethan added, emphasizing each word. Nothing more. Amara felt a flicker of something unfamiliar. Was it disappointment? Before she could examine it, Harper turned sharply toward Ethan. You asked me to handle her case, she reminded him, and I will. But don't expect miracles. I can't fabricate a past for someone who threw it away. Something cold unfurled in Amara's chest. Harper knew something. Something she wasn't saying. Something she was dangling like a weapon. Ethan seemed to sense it too. Harper. He warned. Harper stepped closer to him instead, lifting her chin with quiet defiance. You're making a mistake, she murmured. A catastrophic one. Ethan didn't flinch. The only mistake here, he said softly, is assuming you know my decisions better than I do. Harper's face cracked, just for a fraction of a second. But Amara saw it. A wound, a betrayal, a rage so controlled it frightened her. Harper turned back to Amara, eyes cutting like frost. If you think you can walk back into his life, she whispered, think again. You won't survive what's coming. Amara's breath hitched. Is that a threat? No, Harper said with a soft, lethal smile. It's a promise. She walked out, heels clicking like the countdown of a clock. The door shut behind her. Silence swelled. Heavy, charged. Ethan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. She's been difficult since you left, he murmured. That's not difficult, Amara said quietly. That's obsession. Ethan looked at her then, really looked at her, and something unsettled flickered in his eyes. There's more, she added. She knew details she shouldn't, and she's furious. Not jealous. Furious. Ethan's jaw tightened. I'll handle Harper. Amara shook her head, a dawning dread curling through her. Ethan, what if she's the reason I don't remember? The question hung in the air, cold and devastating. And in the brief moment before Ethan answered, Amara swore she saw something dark flicker behind his eyes, something that told her the truth was far more dangerous than she imagined. The drive to their old apartment was nothing like the silent ride to Kingsley Holdings. This time, the air felt charged, heavy with things neither of them dared to say. Amara stared out the window, watching the city grow older, humbler, more human as they left the glittering high-rises behind. The streets narrowed, storefronts turned eclectic, colorful murals climbed brick walls. The world here felt lived in, imperfect, and for reasons she didn't understand. Something inside her loosened, like a muscle unclenching after years of tension. Ethan didn't speak, but he watched her reflection in the window as if memorizing every breath she took. When the car finally slowed in front of a modest brownstone, Amara felt a strange flutter in her chest. Not recognition, nothing that clear, but a soft tug of familiarity, like a half-remembered song she couldn't place. Ethan stepped out first and offered his hand. She hesitated, then took it, not because she trusted him, but because her knees felt oddly weak. He didn't tighten his grip or guide her. He just held her steady, like he had held her many times before. The stairwell smelled faintly of old wood and laundry detergent, and Amara brushed her fingertips along the railing as they climbed. Every step sent a small prickle through her nerves. The door at the end of the third-floor landing was plain, slightly worn, paint chipped at the corners. Ethan paused before unlocking it, and she saw tension ripple through his shoulders. "You ready?" he asked softly. She wasn't, but she nodded anyway. The door opened, and the world shifted. Warmth greeted her first, not temperature, but atmosphere. The apartment was small, cozy, unexpectedly intimate. Soft amber light washed over a space filled with mismatched furniture, potted plants, stacks of books, and the faint scent of sandalwood and citrus. None of it belonged to the billionaire image she had seen so far. This was a different world entirely, a different Ethan, and maybe a different Amara. She stepped inside slowly, heart thudding against her ribs. A gallery wall caught her eye immediately. Dozens of photos, clipped to lines of twine with tiny wooden pins. Photos of two people young and bright and foolishly in love. Her and Ethan, in law school libraries, in cafes, laughing over case briefs, on rooftops at sunset, holding hands, making faces, catching each other mid-kiss. The images pulsed with a vibrancy she couldn't access, but her body reacted before her mind could catch up, her chest tightening, her lungs stuttering, her palms growing warm. Memories didn't surface, but emotions did, faint echoes pressing at the walls of her amnesia. "We lived here the first 2 years after we got married," Ethan said quietly behind her. "You insisted we didn't need luxury, that we needed to stay grounded, that we needed space to be us." She touched a photo of them dancing barefoot in the kitchen. Her smile in the picture was wide, carefree, alive in a way she couldn't imagine being now. "I look happy," she murmured. "You were," Ethan said. "We both were." She turned, and for the first time, she saw him differently, not as a billionaire, not as a stranger claiming a connection, but as a man who had once lived in this tiny apartment with mismatched furniture and an overflowing shelf of ramen noodles. A man capable of simplicity, a man capable of love. She walked deeper inside, fingertips brushing along the worn armrest of an old navy blue sofa patched at the seams. "I fixed that for you," Ethan said, a small, almost embarrassed smile touching his lips. "You tried to sew it, pricked your finger twice, cried, and then threatened the entire sofa like it was sentient." The corner of her mouth twitched despite the heaviness in her chest. "Sounds dramatic." "It was adorable," he corrected gently. She kept exploring. A desk stood near the window overlooking the street scarred with pen marks, cluttered with old law textbooks. Stacks of sticky notes covered the wall, in tiny, slanted handwriting. Her handwriting. Cross-examine Thompson's testimony. Pick up more Earl Grey. Submit appeal by Friday. And next to those, another set of notes. Different handwriting. Bolder. More angular. Ethan's. Don't forget lunch. Drink water. Stop skipping sleep. You're not allowed to faint again. And then the one that made her throat close. Don't forget to eat. You're brilliant, but you forget everything else. Her fingertips grazed the note like it was fragile. "You wrote this," he nodded, stepping beside her. "You worked too hard. I had to bargain with you just to get you to eat something. Once I threatened to lock away your laptop and you nearly tackled me for it." She almost laughed, but the ache behind her ribs made it impossible. Her gaze drifted to a small wooden box on the desk, plain, scratched, its hinges worn. Something inexplicable tugged at her. May I? Ethan swallowed. It's yours. She opened it slowly. Inside lay a pair of simple gold wedding bands, one larger, the other narrow and delicate. Her breath caught at the sight of her ring, not the stunning constellation one he had shown her earlier, but a modest band, humble, scuffed with time and constant wear. This one mattered. This one held history she could feel in her bones. The metal warmed quickly in her palm, as if responding to her touch. We bought these at a street market in Paris, Ethan said softly. $50 for the pair. You said diamonds were beautiful, but this was ours. Imperfect, unpolished, real. Her heart clenched painfully. She didn't remember, but her body did. A warmth bloomed across her chest, nostalgia without memory, longing without context. Why did we leave this place? She whispered. Ethan exhaled slowly. Because life got bigger, messier. The company grew. You joined me. We needed space, or we thought we did. She could hear regret woven into his voice like a fault line. And did we? His silence was answer enough. Amara looked around again, not with confusion this time, but with a piercing kind of yearning. She could see fragments of herself everywhere, her books, her mug, her blanket draped over the sofa, her handwriting scribbled across textbooks. This was her life, the real one, and it had been lived with him. She looked at Ethan, really looked. The billionaire veneer he wore in Manhattan had fallen away in this apartment. Here, he was softer, younger, warmer around the edges. His eyes, still impossibly blue, no longer looked like weapons forged from ice. They looked human, gentle, almost nervous. We had nothing when we started, he murmured. No money, no influence, no guarantees. Just two stubborn law students who believed the world owed them a chance. His gaze softened with something so tender it made her chest ache. You were the most beautiful part of my life. You still are. The words slipped into her like a slow, warm tide. Amara felt her breath hitch, her heartbeat faltering. Part of her wanted to step back, to protect herself from something she didn't understand. But another part, deep, instinctual, fierce, wanted to lean into the warmth in his voice. A dangerous warmth, a familiar one. Something inside her whispered that he was telling the truth, that she had loved him deeply, wildly, recklessly, and that she'd been happy here, truly happy. Ethan, she whispered. But before she could say more, a sudden vibration broke through the moment, his phone buzzing sharply in his pocket. His expression shifted instantly from tender to tense. I'm sorry, he murmured, stepping away to check the screen. Amara watched as his jaw hardened, his mouth tightening into a line. What is it? She asked. He hesitated, then put the phone down slowly. That message we found earlier, he said. The one sent from your phone the night you disappeared. Her pulse quickened. What about it? The detective found the location it was sent from. Amara waited, breath shallow. Ethan looked at her with a gravity that chilled her. Amara, it was sent from this apartment. The room spun. She braced herself against the desk. That's impossible, she whispered. I wasn't here. You were, he said quietly. And whoever you met that night, they came here too. A cold wave swept through her. Suddenly, the cozy apartment didn't feel warm anymore. It felt like a trap, a crime scene, a memory waiting to swallow her whole. Ethan stepped closer, voice dropping into a protective growl she felt in her spine. Whoever erased your memory was standing exactly where you're standing now. Amara's breath stopped, and for the first time since waking in that penthouse, true fear licked down her spine, not of what she didn't remember, but of what she might remember next. Amara wasn't sure how long she stood frozen in that tiny apartment, her pulse caught between disbelief and dread. The idea that she had been here the night everything vanished, standing in this very room with someone capable of stealing her memory, settled into her bones like ice. Ethan watched her carefully, the air between them taut and silent. But before either of them could speak, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, brows folding. "It's the detective," he murmured. "He needs to meet us at the clinic. He says it's urgent." Clinic. The word hit Amara like a small shock. A clinic. Why? Ethan hesitated, then exhaled slowly. "Because the night you disappeared, someone checked you in there, under a fake name." The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. She nodded, unable to form words, and let Ethan guide her from the apartment. Every step away felt like walking out of a dream, one she wasn't sure was beautiful or terrifying. The city blurred past the car windows until they stopped in front of a private medical center, tucked between two tall buildings. Clean, modern, unimposing, yet something about it made Amara's skin prickle. As they entered the quiet lobby, shades of antiseptic and soft lighting wrapped around her. A nurse greeted Ethan immediately, clearly used to his presence, but paused when she saw Amara, blinking as though reconciling two conflicting realities. Before Amara could ask anything, a familiar voice echoed behind her. "Amara." She turned sharply. A man stood in the hallway, a clipboard in hand, and surprise carved across his features. Warm brown skin, deep-set empathetic eyes, a gentle face framed by close-cropped dark hair. He had a kind of softness Ethan could never imitate. Dr. Samuel Brooks. The name flickered in her mind like a match. She didn't remember him, but her body reacted, a faint flutter of safety in her chest. Ethan stiffened beside her instantly. Samuel approached slowly, disbelief softening into concern as he studied her. "My God," he whispered. "It's really you." Amara blinked. Do we know each other?" He let out a painful laugh. "Know each other?" "Amara, we went to law school together. You lived in the library. I lived next door to the library. We practically survived on bad coffee and anxiety for 3 years." She stared, breath catching. A tiny flash of warmth, friendly, comforting, flickered inside her. "You helped me survive finals," he added with a small smile. "You used to quiz me on torts until I threatened to fake my own death to avoid your flashcards." Amara felt an involuntary pull of affection, gentle, platonic, yet unmistakably fond. Ethan's jaw flexed, hard. Samuel's expression shifted when he saw the clouded confusion in her eyes. "You really don't remember me?" She shook her head, guilt tightening her throat. "I'm sorry." Shock dissolved into something protective. "What happened to you?" Ethan stepped forward, voice low and defensive. "She lost her memory. We're looking into it." Samuel's eyes hardened as they flicked to Ethan. "And you brought her here to me?" Why? Because this is where someone brought her the night she went missing, Ethan replied coldly. This clinic. And apparently you were the doctor on duty. Samuel froze. The air thickened. What he breathed. I know. That's impossible. I would have known if Amara Bennett walked into my clinic. Unless, Ethan said, she didn't walk in as Amara Bennett. Samuel set his clipboard aside and gestured for them to follow him down the hall. Come with me. We're checking the logs. As they walked, Amara felt caught between two gravitational pulls, Ethan's intense, consuming presence on one side, and Samuel's steady, grounding warmth on the other. Each step deepened the conflict she didn't know how to name. Samuel led them to a small office and pulled up digital records. His fingers flew over the keyboard with growing urgency. What date? Last Thursday, Ethan said. Samuel entered the date. A single patient entry appeared, admitted late at night by an unnamed staff member. Fake name. No insurance info. No emergency contact. But one detail made Samuel's face pale. The nurse's note says the patient suffered acute stress, disorientation, and memory fragmentation. He murmured. She kept repeating one name. Ethan tensed. Whose name Samuel swallowed. Yours. Actually. He turned the screen toward Amara. The note was simple. Clinical patient repeatedly asks for Ethan. Appears distressed when asked clarifying questions. Requests to leave. Staff sedates her for safety. A chill swept through Amara. Sedated, against her will. She felt her pulse stutter as the room narrowed around her. Who brought me in? She whispered. Samuel checked another file, but the surveillance link was empty. Deleted. Ethan muttered a curse under his breath. Someone wiped the footage. Samuel turned toward Ethan, voice tightening with accusation. This is why I told you never to drag her into your world. Ethan's head snapped up. What did you say? Samuel stepped closer, eyes burning with long-buried anger. I warned her before. Years ago. I told her getting involved with you was dangerous. You don't know what you're talking about. Ethan growled. Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about. Samuel shot back. Your family, your company, your enemies. Your life is a chessboard, every relationship a risk. And she was always the piece you couldn't protect. Amara's breath shuddered, her gaze darting between them. Stop, she whispered. But the momentum between them was escalating, electric and volatile. Ethan took a slow step forward. You think you know her better than I do. Samuel didn't back away. I think I knew who she was before you turned her life into collateral damage. Ethan's eyes darkened dangerously. Jealousy, protective rage, and fear tangled together like barbs. You always wanted something from her, Ethan said quietly. Didn't you? Samuel's jaw tightened. I wanted her to be safe. And you think she was safer with you, Ethan hissed. You were a crush she outgrew. And you were the storm she drowned in. Samuel countered. The silence that followed snapped like glass. Amara felt the words hit her chest like a blow, two versions of her past colliding, neither offering clarity, only confusion. She lifted a trembling hand. Please, both of you, stop. Samuel's anger melted instantly when he looked at her. His voice softened, warm and protective. Amara, listen to me. Ethan Kingsley is not someone you should trust blindly. He carries enemies like shadows. If you've lost your memory, that isn't a coincidence. Ethan turned to her, his expression fracturing open. Vulnerability flickered behind his fury. Amara, whatever he thinks of me, whatever he imagined back in college, I have never let anything happen to you. Something did happen to her. Samuel shot back, voice cracking with frustration. You can't deny that. The truth hung in the air. Amara wrapped her arms around herself, feeling torn down the middle because Samuel's concern felt safe, familiar, protective. Exactly like the kind of friend someone would run to when their world cracked. And Ethan felt like gravity itself. Impossible to escape. Impossible to resist. Dangerous. Yes, but in a way that made her heart stutter instead of retreat. Chemistry and history she couldn't remember pulsed between them, like a silent current. Logic pulled her toward Samuel. Her heartbeat pulled her toward Ethan. And somewhere between them, she stood lost between past and present, between two men who embodied two versions of love she didn't understand. Before anyone could speak, a sharp knock interrupted the rising storm. A staff member peeked in. Dr. Brooks, she said timidly. The detective is here. He asked to speak with Ms. Bennett privately. Privately. The words sliced clean through the room. Ethan's eyes sharpened instantly. She's not speaking to anyone alone. Ethan, Samuel warned. This isn't about control. It's about keeping her alive. Ethan snapped. Amara inhaled shakily. I'll talk to him. Both men froze. Ethan stepped forward, voice softening, trembling at the edges. Then I'm going with you. She met his gaze, and something unspoken passed between them. A plea, a promise, a danger. She nodded. But before leaving the room, she cast one last glance at Samuel. His expression was heartbreaking, something between longing and helplessness. Be careful, Amara, he murmured. You don't know who you were the night you disappeared, and you don't know who you're walking back toward now. Her heart pounded painfully, because for the first time, she felt it the terrifying possibility that one of these men had loved her enough to lose her, and one might be willing to lose everything to possess her again. And she had no idea which was which. The detective's office was smaller than Amara expected, dim, cluttered, lit by a single overhead lamp that cast long shadows across piles of case files. She sat in the lone chair, while Ethan paced behind her, arms crossed tight, radiating a silent tension that filled the room like static electricity. The detective, a middle-aged man with tired eyes and an expression shaped by too many unsolved truths, dropped a folder onto the desk with a thud. Ms. Bennett, he began. What I'm about to show you might fill some gaps, or it might raise more questions. Amara nodded, clutching the edges of her seat. Just tell me. He slid the folder toward her. This was found in the clinic archives. Someone tried to bury it, but not well enough. She opened the folder. The first document made her breath falter. A medical file. Her name, her real name, written in the corner in faded ink. Symptoms listed in cold, clinical handwriting: acute distress, paranoia, emotional trauma. She felt Ethan stiffen behind her, the air shifting instantly. She turned the page, hands trembling. A report followed a police document she had never seen before. "This is from the night you disappeared," the detective explained. "An unofficial accident report. Never filed properly. Never submitted." The words scratched across her mind like claws. Unofficial. Hidden. Intentional. She scanned the details. A woman matching her description found unconscious, near a stairwell exit. Possible fall. No witnesses. No footage. No calls made. Only a single statement scribbled in the corner. Patient was distraught. Mentioned leaving husband. Amara's vision blurred. She forced herself to look at the final item in the folder, a crumpled sheet torn from a journal. Her journal. She recognized the handwriting instantly, even though she had no memory of writing it. The ink had bled slightly, as though it had been held by sweaty, trembling hands. "If Harper comes near Ethan again, I'll leave. I can't stay if he doesn't choose me." Her lungs caved inward. The sentence vibrated through her like something raw, painful, and terrifyingly real. A whisper of a feeling jealousy, heartbreak. Betrayal stirred deep inside her, awakening like a dormant animal. She swallowed hard. "I wrote this." It wasn't a question. Ethan stepped closer, voice low, wary. "Yes." So she was always around him. Amara murmured. "Close. Too close." Ethan didn't answer. Silence was enough. The detective cleared his throat gently. "There's more context you haven't seen." He typed something on his computer and turned the monitor toward her. Text messages filled the screen, screenshots pulled from a corrupted phone backup. Amara leaned in. Messages from Ethan's number. Messages from Harper's. "Ethan, come to my penthouse tonight. She doesn't need to know." "Ethan, don't worry. She's not here. We're alone." And photos grainy. Intimate angles of a man and woman pressed together in dim lighting. The man's build resembled Ethan's. The woman, though blurred, had Harper's pale hair. Amara felt her stomach twist painfully. It was too much. Too familiar. Too damning. So he did cheat. She whispered, voice cracking. Ethan moved instantly, stepping beside her, leaning down to look her in the eyes. "Amara, those messages are fake." She flinched, anger flaring. "They look real. They were designed to..." He said tightly, "Harper knows exactly how to manipulate proximity. Digital trails, angles, shadows. She knows the system inside out. She knows how to stage a scene and plant evidence. She was your colleague. She had access." The detective nodded. These images were analyzed by a forensics specialist. They're composites. Spliced. Constructed. Amara felt her breath snag. Constructed, fabricated. The detective clarified. Someone used Ethan's old texts, rearranged phrases, altered metadata, and blended together stock footage to create something that looked authentic. Ethan's jaw tightened. "She used your doubts against you." Samuel's voice suddenly echoed in her mind. "You don't know who she was the night she disappeared." Amara swallowed. But why would Harper go that far? The detective exchanged a look with Ethan. Amara saw something pass between them, something heavy, unspoken. "Tell her," the detective urged. Ethan exhaled, shoulders dropping with something like resignation. "Harper was in love with me," he said quietly. She never said it out loud. She didn't have to. Her whole life revolved around my world, my work, my decisions. My family. She expected a future with me, one that never existed. His voice softened, not with pity for Harper, but with a sorrow he seemed to carry for Amara. When I married you, she didn't just lose a fantasy, she lost control. A cold shiver crept up Amara's spine. So she tried to break us apart. She succeeded, Ethan said bitterly. At least for a moment. Amara shut her eyes. The journal entry burned in her memory now, not as words she wrote, but as the echo of a pain she had lived. If Harper comes near Ethan again, I'll leave. She imagined herself writing it, hand shaking, tears blurring the ink. She imagined the heartbreak, the fear, the possibility that Ethan had betrayed her. She imagined the crushing moment she saw those messages, and she imagined herself walking out, believing the worst. I left you because I thought you cheated, she whispered. Ethan didn't speak. His silence was an admission of a different kind, not guilt, but grief. And the accident she pushed. Voice trembling. What happened to me? The detective flipped to another page in the report. Whoever followed you that night tracked you from the penthouse. You left in a rush, distraught. You weren't looking ahead. A lump formed in her throat. So I fell. Ethan's voice dropped to a low, pained murmur. Someone cornered you. Amara jerked her gaze to him. Cornered me. The stairwell door shows signs of forced tampering. The detective explained. Someone waited. Someone made sure you were alone. Harper, Amara whispered, the name tasting like poison. But the detective shook his head. We don't have proof. Not yet. But we know this much. Someone wanted you out of the picture before you could confront Ethan, and they made sure to erase the memory of what you saw. The sedation, Ethan added. Voice strained. The clinic. The fake name. The missing footage. Amara felt her heart race. Breath shallow. The pieces fit together too neatly, too deliberately. I was supposed to forget, she whispered. Forget the fight. Forget the messages. Forget everything. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Pain slicing across his face. You weren't supposed to survive. The room spun. Amara's fingers dug into the armrests, knuckles white. She felt like she was watching her own life from far away, as if someone else had lived this heartbreak, this betrayal that wasn't real, but felt real enough to destroy her. I left you for a lie, she murmured. I almost died for a lie. Ethan knelt beside her chair, voice breaking in a way she had never heard. You left because someone wanted you to believe the worst about me. Because they knew the only thing strong enough to break you was love. She met his gaze, and for the first time, she saw the truth in it. The devastation, the desperation, the love. A memory didn't return, but a feeling did. A soft ache in her chest, a warmth in her skin, a sense that she had once looked at him the way he was looking at her now. Ethan, she whispered. But he didn't touch her, didn't move closer. He simply breathed her name like it was a prayer. The detective closed the folder. There's one more thing you should know, he said quietly. The person who brought you to the clinic wore a disguise. But we retrieved one image from a corrupted file. Amara felt her pulse stop. Show me. The detective clicked a file. A blurred, grainy photo appeared, barely a silhouette. but the shape was unmistakable. The figure was wearing a coat she recognized, a coat she had seen before, on someone she thought she could trust. Her breath fractured. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "Not him." Ethan's eyes widened as he leaned in. "Amara, who is that?" Her chest tightened painfully, because the person in that photo, the person standing with her limp body, was someone who had looked at her with tenderness, someone who had warned her against Ethan, someone who still loved her. "Samuel," she whispered, barely audible. "It's Samuel." Amara didn't leave the detective's office so much as drift out of it, her mind a blur of jagged truths and half-formed fears. The hallway lights felt too bright, the air too thin. She'd barely processed the revelation about Samuel, the grainy silhouette carrying her unconscious body, when another reality pressed against her chest. Suffocating and relentless, she had once chosen to leave Ethan. Voluntarily, painfully, devastatingly. And now, standing at the center of an unraveling conspiracy she couldn't fully remember, she was thinking about leaving him again. Ethan walked beside her in silence, tall and tense, his presence a gravitational force pulling in everything around him. His hand hovered near her back, not touching but close enough to feel the heat of it, as if he were fighting the urge to hold her, anchor her, claim her. She could feel the restraint vibrating off him. They stepped outside into the cold evening air, city lights flickering like distant stars. Amara hugged her arms around herself, both for warmth and for steadiness. Ethan finally spoke, his voice quiet, but edged with something volatile. "You're thinking of walking away again." It wasn't a question. She exhaled shakily. "I don't know what I'm thinking." "Yes," Ethan said softly. "You do." She turned to him, anger and confusion tangling in her chest. How could I not think about leaving? Look at what happened. Look at what I lost. Look at how much pain there must have been for me to write those words in my journal. His eyes darkened, not with anger, but with the kind of sorrow that could hollow a man out. "You left because someone fed you lies," he said. "Because you thought I betrayed you. Because Harper wanted to destroy everything we built." And the accident, she whispered. The clinic. The sedation. Someone dressed in Samuel's coat. "Yes," Ethan said, his jaw tightening with fury he didn't bother hiding. "And I will tear apart my entire world to uncover who orchestrated it. But what I can't understand." He stepped closer, voice lowering to something raw and wounded, "is why you're still ready to run." She swallowed hard, unable to hold his gaze. "Because I don't remember loving you," she said. The words cracked between them like gunfire. Ethan closed his eyes for a brief second, like he'd been struck in the chest. When he opened them, the restraint she had seen all day snapped not into anger, but into a fierce, almost desperate honesty. "Amara," he murmured, "I can survive losing everything: my company, my reputation, my name. But I cannot survive losing you again." Her breath hitched. The intensity in his voice terrified her, not because it was possessive, but because it sounded true, devastatingly true. "Ethan, you don't understand," he continued, stepping close enough for her to feel the warmth radiating off him. "When you walked out the first time, it destroyed me. It ripped apart everything I thought was unbreakable. I searched for you for days, terrified something had happened, And I was right. Something did happen. Something I should have prevented. The confession landed heavily. She studied him, seeing not the billionaire, not the CEO, not the icy man everyone feared, but the version of him from their tiny apartment. The one who left handwritten notes. The one who danced with her in the kitchen. The one who loved her enough to fall apart in her absence. I wasn't enough to protect you, Ethan said. So this time, I will burn down every obstacle. I will fight my family, the board, the media, anyone who thinks our marriage is weak enough to break. His voice lowered further. But I can't fight you. Not if you choose to walk away again. She felt something twist inside her, sharp and aching. A fragile part of her, a part she barely recognized, wanted to lean into him, into that certainty, into that impossible devotion. But the louder part screamed questions she could no longer ignore. Why did it hurt so much, she whispered, trembling. If you were faithful, if you never betrayed me, why did I feel pain strong enough to drive me away? Ethan exhaled, long and slow, as if her question struck a bruise he'd kept hidden. Because loving me wasn't easy. He admitted, I was demanding, obsessive, too closed off, too focused on protecting you to realize I was pushing you away. She blinked. That wasn't the answer she expected. You were hurting. He continued, lonely. I didn't give you enough of myself. And then Harper whispered poison into your ears at the perfect moment. She planted seeds in soil already cracked. Amara felt her throat tighten. So it wasn't just lies. She whispered, part of the pain was real. Ethan nodded slowly, each movement heavy. Yes, and for that, I take responsibility. The honesty in his voice disarmed her. No defensiveness, no excuses, just quiet, painful truth. You were trying to build a life with me, he said, but I was too focused on fighting my family, my company, my enemies. I underestimated how much the pressure affected you. I thought loving you fiercely was enough, but you needed me to love you gently too, and I failed you. Her chest tightened painfully. She searched his eyes and found something she never expected: vulnerability. So you see, Amara, he said, taking a hesitant step closer, you didn't leave because I betrayed you. You left because I didn't know how to love you the way you deserved. The world seemed to slow. The traffic noise faded. Her heartbeat thrummed in her ears. But I learned, Ethan said, voice low. I learned from losing you, and I will not make the same mistake again. She didn't know whether it was bravery or foolishness that made her whisper, and what if I still leave? He inhaled sharply. The mask of control slipped just enough for her to see the devastation beneath. He reached out, but didn't touch her, fingers trembling in the space between them. Then I'll let you go, he said quietly, if that's what will make you happy. She stared at him, stunned. The idea of Ethan, this powerful, unyielding man, ever letting her go, felt impossible. But he wasn't finished. Just know, he murmured, that I will spend the rest of my life loving you quietly, from whatever distance you choose. Because losing you once broke me. Losing you twice will end me. Her breath faltered. She turned away, trying to steady the trembling in her hands. Her mind screamed for logic. Her heart whispered for truth. And beneath both, something deeper pulled at her, a sensation, faint but persistent, like the ghost of an emotion she once lived. Love, not remembered, but remembered by her bones. She wrapped her arms around herself. "I need time," she whispered. Ethan nodded, though his jaw clenched. "You have it. I need space. I'll give you as much as I can," he said. "But understand this. I won't stand by while someone tries to hurt you again. I can't." She looked back at him. In his eyes, she saw both promise and fear, devotion and desperation. And she realized the question haunting her wasn't whether Ethan loved her. He did ferociously. The real question, the one that hollowed her out, was one she had to answer herself. If she had once loved him enough to marry him, why had the love hurt so deeply she was willing to walk away? And if he had been faithful, why did her heart still feel bruised when she looked at him now, before she could speak? Ethan's phone lit up. He glanced at the screen, then at her eyes widening with alarm. "Amara," he said tightly, "we need to go. Now." "Why? What happened?" He stepped closer, voice a low warning. "Someone just accessed the apartment building where you used to live." Her blood ran cold. "Who?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Samuel." The courthouse smelled like polished wood and nerves. Amara felt her pulse thrum beneath her skin as she walked through the crowded hall. Ethan beside her, silent, composed, but brimming with a tension so sharp it felt like static in the air. News of her memory loss had spread through the city like wildfire, feeding tabloids with speculation and board members with fear. Kingsley Holdings was trembling beneath the weight of a scandal no one fully understood, and now the divorce hearing scheduled before her disappearance had become a battleground. Amara didn't want to be here. Not yet. Not before she pieced together the final fragments of what had happened to her. But she had demanded it. She needed clarity. She needed to confront the truth in a room where lies could not hide behind whispers and shadows. The courtroom doors opened with a low groan. Inside, Harper Quinn stood at the counsel's table, immaculate in a tailored navy suit, hair pinned in a flawless twist, lips curved in a faint smirk. She radiated confidence, poised, dangerous, triumphant, as if she had already won. Her gaze flicked to Ethan with calculated satisfaction, then landed on Amara with an icy sharpness that made something cold coil in Amara's stomach. "Look who finally decided to join us," Harper murmured as they passed. "I was beginning to think you'd run again." Ethan shot her a warning look, but Amara ignored the jab. She'd learned that Harper's power came from getting under people's skin, and she refused to give her the satisfaction today. The judge entered, and everyone rose. The proceedings began swiftly, the courtroom filled with legal jargon, murmurs, and the tapping of keyboards. Harper spoke smoothly, using her polished voice like a dagger. "Your Honor, this marriage is irretrievably broken, my client." She gestured to Ethan with theatrical emphasis, "has suffered emotional turmoil, public humiliation, and severe loss of reputation due to Ms. Bennett's erratic behavior and abrupt abandonment." Amara's jaw tightened. Ethan didn't flinch, but a muscle in his cheek twitched. Harper continued, "We move to finalize the dissolution of this marriage, as Ms. Bennett clearly intended when she filed these papers." She lifted the divorce document Amara had signed in pain, in fear, in heartbreaking misunderstanding. Amara felt a stabbing ache in her chest. She had done that. She had truly believed Ethan betrayed her. She had believed the lies. Her attorney, who had barely spoken to her before this morning, rose with little conviction. My client is attempting reconciliation. She asks for more time. The judge frowned. Based on what grounds, that was the moment Amara stepped forward. Her voice steady, despite the tremor beneath it. On the grounds, she said, that I have reason to believe critical evidence in this case was fabricated. A ripple tore through the room. Harper's expression faltered, flashing with a flicker of unease before she masked it again with disdain. Fabricated. That's a serious accusation. Surely Ms. Bennett isn't blaming her own decisions on imaginary conspiracies. Amara held her gaze. I'm blaming them on the truth. The judge looked between them. You have evidence. Not yet, Amara admitted, but I've requested access to several data sources' surveillance archives, phone backups, the accident investigation file. She inhaled. Those materials were hidden from me before. They're being recovered now. Harper scoffed. Recovered from where? A dream. The judge raised a hand. Ms. Quinn, allow her to finish. Amara continued. I believe these materials will show that messages and photos used to justify my departure were falsified, that my trust was intentionally sabotaged by someone with motive and access. Impossible, Harper muttered, but she didn't sound as certain as before. Amara pressed on. Someone wanted me gone. Someone manipulated me into believing Ethan betrayed me. And the night I left him, I was followed. I was found unconscious. Someone erased evidence of what happened. Someone made sure I wouldn't remember. A hush descended over the room like a falling curtain. Harper's fingers curled around the table's edge. This is outrageous, she snapped. She's clearly unstable. This entire speech. But before she could finish, the courtroom doors opened with a sharp slam. The detective entered. Everyone turned. He strode down the aisle, carrying a slim laptop tucked under his arm. His expression grim. Your Honor, he said, bowing slightly. With permission. I have new evidence directly relevant to the integrity of this proceeding. The judge nodded. Approach. The detective connected his laptop to the courtroom screen. The lights dimmed slightly as the monitor flickered to life. This data was recovered from a corrupted phone backup. He explained. The original files were tampered with. However, digital forensics allowed partial reconstruction. Harper stiffened. The detective opened a folder titled Reconstructed Forgery Logs. Amara's breath caught. The screen displayed a timeline, lines of code, timestamps, file manipulations, and at the top, metadata linking the alterations to a specific device. A device registered under the name Harper Quinn. Gasps erupted throughout the courtroom. Harper shot to her feet. This is absurd. Anyone could have. Sit down, Ms. Quinn, the judge ordered sharply. The detective continued. Here is the original text Ethan sent to his assistant. The screen showed a simple message. Meeting moved to 9. Confirm with the team. He clicked again. Here is the altered version sent to Ms. Bennett's device. Come to my penthouse tonight. She doesn't need to know. The shift in tone was sickening. Another slide, original photograph Ethan at a charity event. Fabricated version Ethan in a dimly lit room, embracing a figure with Harper's hair artificially blended into the frame. Harper's voice trembled with fury. These are doctored. They are reversed. Doctored. The detective replied calmly. We reconstructed the originals from your edits. The room exploded in whispered shocks. Harper looked around wildly, panic breaking through her mask. You can't pin this on me, I was framed. The detective clicked one last file. Security footage of Harper entering a restricted server room at Kingsley Holdings late at night, hours before the fabricated texts reached Amara. The timestamp glowed like a death sentence. Ethan's jaw locked as he turned slowly to Harper. His voice was low, controlled, lethal. You did this. Harper's composure shattered. I did it for you, she cried. You were mine until she stole you. I was protecting you, protecting us. There was never an us, Ethan said softly, but the softness was sharper than any blade. Not for a moment. Silence swallowed the room. Amara felt like the floor beneath her was dissolving. All this time, she whispered. I thought you. I believed. She turned to Ethan, eyes trembling. It was never true. Ethan's gaze found hers, steady, wounded, unwavering. I told you, he murmured, voice breaking. I never betrayed you, not even in my worst moment. Her breath hitched. Something inside her cracked open, spilling warmth and guilt and a deep, aching sorrow. Tutkala Ulam, she whispered, and I left you for something that never happened. Ethan stepped closer, eyes glinting with a tenderness she wasn't prepared for. You were hurting. You were lied to. You thought I destroyed you. How could I blame you for trying to save yourself? Amara swallowed hard. Her chest burned. But I hurt you, and I'll take that hurt, he said, 1,000 times over, if it means you're still here. His voice trembled with a truth that wrapped around her like heat, like memory, like home. The judge cleared her throat quietly, but the room felt suspended in a different world. A world where lies had shattered, but the truth was still fragile, waiting for what came next. Harper's attorney desperately asked for a recess, but it was too late. The truth had already detonated, and in its wake, Amara stood facing the man she once loved, the man she had left, the man she might love still, and the broken courtroom where their marriage had nearly died. But not today. Today, something else had broken instead. The lies. And in the quiet that followed, Amara felt the beginning of something terrifying and beautiful. The courtroom emptied slowly, murmurs fading into the hallway until only the echo of distant footsteps remained. Amara stood perfectly still as the last shreds of tension dissolved into a silence so fragile she could hear her heart pounding against her ribs. The fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead, bathing everything in a pale glow that made the moment feel suspended, unreal, like a memory caught between worlds. Harper had been removed from the room shrieking, clawing at explanations, grasping for excuses that crumbled beneath the weight of evidence. The judge had postponed the divorce indefinitely. The truth had detonated. And now there was nothing left to shield her from the tidal wave of emotion pressing against her mind. Ethan took a careful step toward her, hesitant for the first time since she'd awakened in that penthouse weeks ago. His voice was low, cautious. Amara. But she didn't hear him. The world had gone suddenly, violently still. Then something cracked open inside her. Not gently, not gradually. It was an explosion, a shattering, a surge of warmth, fear, longing, grief, an emotional shock that tore through her like a lightning strike. And then the memories came, not one at a time, but all at once. she gasped, clutching the edge of the table as her knees buckled. Ethan reached for her, but she shook her head, eyes squeezing shut as the flood overwhelmed her. A small chapel in the 6th arrondissement of Paris, warm candlelight flickering against stone. Ethan standing before her in a navy suit, his hands trembling as he slid the simple gold ring onto her finger, his voice breaking as he whispered, "I do like." He had been waiting lifetimes to say it. Her own breathless laughter through tears as she said it back. A sob tore from her throat. The force of the image nearly knocked her to the ground. More followed. Relentless. Late nights in their cramped apartment, both hunched over case files, hair messy, coffee cold, legs tangled together under the desk. Ethan kissing her forehead whenever she groaned in frustration. She whispering encouragements when he doubted himself. Falling asleep on the sofa, wrapped in the same blanket, hearts beating in the same exhausted rhythm. Her fingers trembled uncontrollably. "Oh God," she whispered. Ethan moved closer slowly, carefully as though afraid any sudden motion would shatter her, but she wasn't finished. Another memory ripped through her. Ethan lifting her onto the kitchen counter, laughing against her lips, her pushing him against the door of their old bedroom, breathless, desperate, loving him with a force she had never understood until now. The way he touched her like she was art, miracle, gravity. The way she gave herself to him completely, as though their bodies had known each other long before their names met. Her breath came in sharp, broken gasps. She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the phantom imprint of his touch still lingering inside her. "Stop," she whispered to the memories, but they didn't. They couldn't, because the last one was the deepest cut of all. Her standing in the rain outside their penthouse, Harper's voice echoing in her mind, the fake texts, the doctored photo, Ethan's absence that night unrelated to Harper, but painfully timed. Her heart breaking so violently she could barely breathe. The moment she wrote the journal entry, the moment she packed her suitcase with trembling hands, the moment she whispered, "I can't do this anymore," before walking out the door. She had cried until her eyes burned. She had loved him so deeply it destroyed her, and she had walked away believing she was saving herself. She staggered backward, hitting the wall with a soft thud. Tears blurred everything. Ethan was beside her in an instant, but he didn't reach for her. Not yet. He waited, letting her breathe, letting her fall apart, letting her remember. "Amara," he whispered again, voice raw, frayed, barely holding together. She looked up at him through tears, and for the first time since she opened her eyes in that penthouse, she saw him not as a stranger, but as the man she had loved with her whole soul, the man she had married, the man she had left, the man she had mourned, and the man she had found again. Her voice broke. Ethan. His name tasted like home, like loss, like forgiveness, like a heart she'd forgotten how to hold. She took a step toward him, then another, until she stood so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body. I remember," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Everything. I remember everything." His breath hitched. He searched her eyes desperately, almost disbelieving. "Everything." She nodded, shoulders trembling with the weight of it. "Our wedding. The apartment. The nights we studied until sunrise. The way you made me feel. The way I loved you." Her voice cracked on the word loved. Ethan closed his eyes, jaw tightening as he tried to breathe through the swell of emotion threatening to break him. And then she whispered the words that undid him completely. Ethan, I remember you. A harsh breath escaped him. He didn't move at first, not until she collapsed into him with a quiet sob that sounded like months of buried grief finally surfacing. He caught her instantly, pulling her into his arms with a force that told her exactly how long he'd been waiting for this. His hands gripped her back, her waist, her shoulders, as though terrified she might disappear if he didn't hold her tightly enough. Amara. He breathed against her hair, voice cracking. God. Amara. She clung to him, burying her face in his chest. Inhaling the scent, she suddenly remembered with bittersweet clarity. Cedarwood, ink, warmth, home. She sobbed into him, shaking. I left you. I hurt you. I believed things that weren't real. You were lied to, he murmured, cupping the back of her head. Manipulated. Broken on purpose. None of this was your fault. She pulled back slightly, wiping her tears, meeting his eyes through a blur of emotion so intense it terrified her. But I walked away. She whispered, I walked away from you, and I never stopped loving you. He whispered back, voice trembling. Not for 1 second. Her breath stuttered. And then Ethan, who had held himself back for days, who had swallowed jealousy and anger and heartbreak for the sake of her healing, finally let his emotions spill free. He cradled her face with both hands, thumbs brushing her cheeks with reverent tenderness, as if memorizing the feel of her all over again. This time, he said, voice low, steady, and unshakable. I won't let anyone tear us apart. She leaned into his touch, heart pounding with remembered longing. Promise me, she whispered, his forehead pressed to hers. I swear it, he breathed, on everything I am, everything I have, everything I lost. Her tears fell again, but they were different now, softer, warmer, not born of pain, but of recognition, of return, of love reclaiming its place. Ethan, she whispered, voice breaking on the truth she had finally recovered. I remember loving you so much, it scared me. His eyes shone. Then, let me show you, he murmured, pulling her into his chest once more. That you never stopped. And as she melted into his arms, where she had always belonged, Amara felt her past and present align in a single undeniable truth. Her heart had found its way back. The city seemed softer on the morning of their second wedding, as if Manhattan itself exhaled after months of chaos and secrets. Sunlight glinted off high-rise windows in warm golds instead of harsh silvers, and the air carried the faint promise of spring, new beginnings blooming where heartbreak had once broken everything open. Amara stood behind the veil of her own reflection in the bridal suite, fingers brushing the silk of her dress, marveling at how different she felt this time. Not the trembling hope of a runaway elopement in Paris, not the bruised confusion of a woman piecing herself back together, but clarity, strength, memory, love that had been rediscovered, reclaimed, and chosen again with both eyes open. Her heart no longer felt like a battlefield, but like fertile ground after a storm. Next to her on the vanity, lay the simple gold band Ethan had placed on her hand years ago, the delicate scratches still visible, and beside it, the new ring, sleeker, elegant, shimmering softly as though it understood it wasn't replacing anything, only joining it. A knock sounded lightly against the door. Samuel stepped in, dressed in a dark suit, his expression warm and steady. The guilt she once felt when looking at him had eased into something gentler. Their past platonic, unrequited, complicated, had found a place to rest without bitterness. "You look like a woman who knows exactly what she wants," he said with a soft smile. She returned it. "I do. And you're not scared." "Terrified," she admitted, breathless with honesty. "But I choose him anyway." Samuel nodded, pride and acceptance settling into his features. "Then that's enough. Love doesn't erase fear. It just means you move through it together." He offered her his arm. Ready. She slipped her hand into the crook of his elbow. More than ever. They walked out into the garden where the ceremony would take place. A quiet refuge carved in the heart of the city, filled with white roses, soft light, and the hum of family and friends who had become their circle over the years. Ethan stood at the end of the aisle, and for a moment, the world stopped. He wore a charcoal suit, tailored but not rigid, the first few buttons of his shirt undone, as if to show he wasn't hiding behind his armor anymore. His blue eyes softened the moment they met hers, no longer shielded by arrogance, fear, or grief. Just love, raw and steady. Amara felt her throat tighten as she walked toward him. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of her life, her joy, her agency, her story. Ethan's breath wavered as she approached, as if he were seeing her for the first time, and seeing her again after nearly losing her two truths, folding into one overwhelming emotion. When she reached him, Samuel placed her hand into Ethan's, a gesture of peace instead of rivalry. Ethan nodded at him with unspoken gratitude, and Samuel stepped aside. The officiant began, but Amara barely heard the words. She felt only Ethan's thumb brushing her palm, grounding her, reminding her that this love had survived storms no one should have to endure. When it was time for the vows, Ethan took her hands in his voice, usually steady as steel, trembled on the first word, Amara. Her name broke like a prayer on his tongue. "The first time I married you, I was so overwhelmed by loving you that I barely remembered the vows I promised. I only knew I would spend my life trying to deserve you." He swallowed, emotion tightening every line of his face. "But losing you taught me what love costs, what it means to choose someone even when it hurts, even when you're afraid, even when the world tries to tear you apart." His eyes shone with unshed tears. "So today, with everyone we love watching, I vow something deeper, something truer." He leaned in slightly, voice thick with devotion. "Even if you forget this world 1,000 times, I will always find you. I will love you again from the start. Every single time. Because my heart is yours. It has been yours from the moment you walked into my life, and it will be yours long after everything else fades." A tremor ran through her, part awe, part longing, part the quiet ache of knowing she had once walked away from this man, believing he didn't love her. She blinked away tears as Ethan squeezed her hands gently, silently telling her it was okay, that she didn't need perfection or certainty, only truth. Her truth trembled up her throat as she began her vow. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice catching. "The first time I loved you, it felt like a fire I didn't know how to control. I didn't understand how to let someone love me so fiercely without losing myself." Her eyes softened with memory, painful, precious, alive. "But this time, I understand. I remember how we fought for each other, how we broke, how we healed. I remember the way you held me when I forgot everything, and the way you waited for me to find my way back." A tear slipped down her cheek, but she didn't look away. "So this time, I choose you with all of me, with my memory, with my heart, with my future. No shadows, no lies, no fear." She smiled softly, voice steadier now. "I choose you not because I need you, but because I want you. Because loving you is the bravest thing I've ever done." A hush swept through the garden as they exchanged rings old and new, past and present, merging into something whole. When they kissed, the world melted into a quiet certainty she hadn't felt even in their first marriage. This time, it wasn't just passion or youth or promise. It was commitment, strength, a miraculous reunion of two souls who had every reason to break, but chose to rebuild instead. After the ceremony, sunlight filtered through the garden as guests celebrated around them. Amara leaned into Ethan's side, watching people laugh, toast, and dance. Harper's name hung in the background of every conversation, the woman who was now awaiting charges for forgery, tampering, and reckless endangerment. Justice was finally growing roots in the ruins she'd left behind. Samuel stood nearby, talking with colleagues, warm, composed, hopeful. He caught Amara's eye at one point. She smiled gratefully. He smiled back. No heartbreak left, only history and respect. Ethan wrapped an arm around her waist and lowered his voice. "You okay?" She nodded. "Better than okay." They walked together toward a small table tucked beneath the trees, covered in brochures and plans for the new project they had been quietly building together in the weeks since her memory returned, the Bennett Kingsley Legal Foundation, dedicated to supporting Black and minority women facing injustice. It was her dream, his resources, their purpose. "This is our fresh start," Amara murmured. Ethan brushed a kiss against her temple. "It always was." The sun dipped lower, casting golden ribbons across the garden. And as she stood in the arms of the man she had chosen, truly chosen, Amara felt the story of her life settle into a beautiful, radiant truth. She had forgotten him. She had lost him. But she had found him again. And this time, nothing, not lies, not fear, not fate, would pull them apart. Ready to go home. "Mrs. Kingsley," Ethan whispered, playful, reverent, in love. She smiled, fingers intertwining with his. "More than ready." The end.